You're listening to the Baumbastic Podcast with Andrew Ellis on Inside Arkansas.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Baumbastic Podcast, presented by Inside Arkansas and hosted by Andrew Ellis, the best damn baseball show on the planet. It is a Thursday. It is June 5th. We are a mere about almost exactly 48 hours from Arkansas and Tennessee opening up their super regional at Baum-Walker Stadium. And as you guys know, today's Baumbastic Postseason Podcast is presented by Hickey and Hole Law Partners here in Arkansas, where they handle matters such as divorce, custody, criminal, civil litigation, and more. It's Hickey and Hole Law. Things are about to get better. And guys, I got to be honest, I am just fired the hell up, man. Like, I wish they played right now. I wish they played tomorrow. Counting down the minutes, counting down the days to this series. Like I said, about 48 hours, or at least from when I'm recording this, Arkansas and Tennessee will get going on Saturday at 4 p.m. Reminder to come hang out with us at Foghorns before and after the games. And with a 4 p.m. first pitch, it kind of makes it ideal where, you know, if you want to eat lunch, we'll be there. We're going to be doing a pregame show at 1 o'clock at Foghorns. You can be there in person. We're also going to be streaming it on our YouTube channel, of course. And then again, after the game, we're going to be doing a post-game show almost immediately after the game gets over with. And so looking forward to that. And again, we're going to be there all weekend. So come hang out with us. Come kick it whenever. We'd appreciate you coming by and saying what's up. There's going to be a lot of Hog fans there. It's going to be hard to park, but there is no better place to pregame and postgame than Foghorns and with the Inside Arkansas crew. So we're excited about that, man. And again, like, I feel like we've covered this from like every angle. Like, we know what Tennessee has to offer. We know the situation at Arkansas. We know the stakes. Like, again, I always say I try and sell you guys on like why this series is important or like why this team is good. And I don't have to do any of that. Like, you know the situation. You know how big this is. And I think we can all kind of feel that, you know, in this Arkansas fan base, we know what this moment is going to mean for this program and what's at stake. I mean, a trip to Omaha is on the line, which is always nice, but I think it's more about what it says for your program to get back there, to kind of put to bed all of this, can't get out of the regional, you know, choking, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, you can still choke when you get to Omaha. We know that, but I think if the season ends in Omaha, whether they win the title or not, like, at least then we're not going to look back at this and be like, damn, missed opportunity. And look, Tennessee's a damn good baseball team. There's no shame in losing a series or a super regional to them. So I don't think it's one of those things where it's like, hey, if Arkansas doesn't win, it's over. They're screwed. The program's cooked. But it's definitely going to be one that stings for a while, one that we will never forget. And I imagine the atmosphere is going to be pretty wild. And so don't think you could ask for a better stage for this series. It's going to be on ESPN for at least the first two games. I would imagine if it goes to a game 3, it's going to be on the mothership as well. Again, man, I just am so excited. Like, I almost don't even want, like, I'm almost tired of talking about it. Of course, I'm not really tired of talking about it. I'm going to continue to talk. And on today's episode, we are going to be breaking down sort of the pitching matchups, pitching breakdown. And again, we've already covered this series once. You guys have seen a lot of these arms that we're going to talk about. But I want to talk a little bit, like, just kind of look at it on paper. I actually think there's more parallels between these two pitching staffs than maybe I realized. And so I look forward to breaking that down. But before we do that, I do want to remind you guys, we are brought to you again by hickeyandholelaw.com. Divorce and custody cases are too important to try and face alone. Let Hickey and Hole Law provide you with persistent and diligent representation to help guide you through the entire process. They have handled thousands of family law cases and have experienced nearly every scenario that may come up. They understand that it is crucial to their clients that they keep them updated on the cases that they're available to provide advice and counsel throughout the process. They will take time to meet with their clients, respond to emails, and return your calls always. Hickey and Hole Law have offices across the state of Arkansas in Fayetteville, Fort Smith, Little Rock, and Mena. You can call them today at 479-434-2414, or you can check out their website, visit hickeyandhole.com, or scan the QR code in the top right corner of your screen. It's Hickey and Hole Law. Things are about to get better. And man, again, every time I just keep talking about the series or even think about the series, I get those chills a little bit, man. And we talked a lot on the show and Inside Arkansas Live about how this kind of is like the culmination of so much, you know, like whether, you know, I view like this season, if this is going to be the national title winning season, which if you guys remember going back to even the off season, I was like, look, I was trying to sell fans, like some casual fans, on why they should be more excited for the season. They should just jump on board and embrace this journey. You don't want to look back at the end of the season. If it does wind up being when Arkansas won the national title, you don't want to look back and be like, man, I wasn't really locked in. I wasn't really watching the games. I wasn't really invested, but I'm happy they won. But it hits a little bit different when you're living it and breathing it, which is what we do over here at the Baumbastic Podcast. And I know a lot of you in the fan base of Arkansas baseball. I know how much this will mean to a lot of you. I put out a tweet about how the 2009, I had a little clip of the 2009 College World Series elimination game between Arkansas and Virginia. And it's just crazy looking back. Like, you never know what moments in your life are going to, like, when you're in the moment, as Andy Bernard says, you never really know you're in the good old days until you've left them. Shout out to The Office. But it's always cool, like, to look back at moments and be like, man, I didn't realize it then, but that was kind of a turning point. Like, that was a big deal in my life. And so I kind of feel that way about the 2009 summer. I was 11 years old, growing up in Central Louisiana, obsessed with baseball. Thought at that point in time, I was like, for sure, I'm going to the MLB. So, of course, I looked up to all these Razorback baseball players and loved watching their run to Omaha, loved watching those games in the College World Series. And I can remember it so vividly, seeing Brett Eibner hit that 2-run home run to tie it, seeing Tim Carver, who would later coach me at Razorback hitting camp that summer, which is also a big deal in my life, seeing him make that play at shortstop after the bobble, turning that double play, Dallas Keuchel coming out of the bullpen and just shoving, seeing your ace go out there on the bump and put it all on the line in an elimination game. Like, I learned so much about baseball. I learned so much about the Razorbacks and just like life, watching these teams go through their journey. And so, I understand that, we want Arkansas to win the title, and we want to have as much success as possible. And a lot of times, if you don't get that end goal, it's hard to appreciate it and hard to know, like, okay, was this all for nothing? Did it really matter? But for me personally, like, when I look back at some of those heroes those past years and know how much I looked up to them and know how much it meant to me to watch those teams and how inspired I was by that, again, when I look back in hindsight, it meant a lot more to me than even I realized in the moment. And I was buzzing in the moment, thinking it was like the coolest thing ever. Hell, I remember even in 2004 when I was 6, like, how I was just so happy to watch Arkansas baseball on TV. Like, I didn't even care that they went 0-2 in Omaha. I was just so happy. I was like, oh, my team's in the College World Series. This is awesome. And I thought it was just gonna be like that forever. But it's so cool to look back at some of those moments. And again, like, to tie it into today's show, because we're talking about here the 2025 team, that's what's so exciting about these opportunities is, like, again, I don't know if Arkansas is going to win the national title or not, but it's like, if they do, there's going to be so many memorable moments. And again, like, I can remember them so vividly from back then that, like, the kids of today that are listening, like my nephews who are now that same age range, 12, 11, 9, like, they're in that age range where they're playing baseball. They're being inspired by all this. And I'm just getting to see them look up to Vahiva, Aloy, and all these guys. Like, it really is pretty cool to think about. And so that's what's so exciting about a weekend like this, is like, it's like the calm before the storm. You know it's at stake. You know how important this is. And you know that, like, if you win, you're going to remember this for the rest of your life. It's just freaking exhilarating. And frankly, even if you lose, you're going to remember it for the rest of your life, because I know we all damn sure remember that NC State Super Regional from 2021. But okay, I've yapped enough. I've rambled enough. Let's actually get into the show, and let's get into what I wanted to talk about, which are these two pitching staffs. Because again, when it gets to postseason baseball, it really is. And that's why we talk so much about the circle of trust. It all comes down to, who do you have on the mound in the biggest moments of the season? And so what both teams have in front of them now is 27 innings potentially of baseball. Who are going to be the guys that are on the mound then? Who are going to be the guys that dictate the season? And when you break it down and you sit there and say, okay, I thought about just ranking each of, like, Zach Root at the top, Gage Wood 2 or whatever, and then just like going 1 through 10 and just ranking each guy on each team, and then kind of comparing and contrasting and being like, all right, is our number 1 better, or is their number 2 better, or is our number 5 better than their number 3, or, like, doing that little game, which of course is kind of tough to pull off, because it's like if I were to ask you, who's Arkansas' 6th best arm, like, what does that really matter? What does that mean? But instead, what I did was just kind of look at some of these pieces. And again, we've covered this series before. You guys have heard me ramble about a lot of these guys before, on both sides, Arkansas, of course, but even the Tennessee guys. We've covered them a decent amount on this podcast. And by the way, if you missed a couple days ago, we did an episode where we just talked about the top draft prospects in this series. A lot of these names are guys that we talked about on that episode, so I'm not going to go in depth on, their whole stuff arsenal and all that. But again, I didn't realize it kind of until I wrote it down, that there's a lot of similarities here in some of these regards to these pitching staffs. Ultimately, I think the big picture view that I had, at least when they played a couple weeks ago and kind of when I think about their seasons, is Tennessee's got this 1-2 punch on the starting rotation of Liam Doyle, of course, who's a Golden Spikes Award finalist, and Marcus Phillips, who's also a top 2-round prospect, super projectable righty. That's kind of been their formulas. Those two guys eat up a ton of innings, and they piece it together with 3 or 4 arms outside of that. But I felt like Arkansas had the better depth overall, and I still do feel that way for the most part. Like, I still think those 2 arms are really good. I think Arkansas has a little bit more depth at the end of it. But when I really just break it down and kind of see, all right, who fills this role for Arkansas? Who fills this role for Tennessee? There's some pretty funny parallels, and so let's talk about them a little bit. And we'll start with the top 2 starters for each team. And I think one thing that you're going to hear asked a lot, I've already gotten a few people that ask, like, hey, who's starting game 3 for Arkansas? And who's starting game 3 for Tennessee? Well, I'll just tell you right now, neither team knows who they would definitively start in game 3. And I'm just going to tell you right now, neither team cares. Not that they don't care and like they're just going to wing it. But when you're in a situation like this, you really don't have the luxury of looking ahead to game 3 and planning it out and being like in a game 1 or a game 2 and being like, well, we'd really like to use this pitcher, but I'd like to start him game 3, so I'm not going to use him. Like, that's not really a thing that happens. And I think what we've seen with both of these teams, like for Aiden Jimenez and Arkansas, there's not much of a they're not a super long leash there. So even if it is Aiden Jimenez and we can feel how we want to feel about it, it's not like Arkansas is just going to throw him for 5-6 innings and live with whatever results. Like, if it's going well, they'll let him roll. If he's not, they will quickly go to the next guy. And I think that leash, especially if you get to a game 3 winner take all, winner go to Omaha situation, I think it's really going to be Johnny Holstaff, where both of these teams piece together with their bullpens. But so I think the number 1 and number 2 starters are worth comparing, because I think these are the guys that both teams are kind of counting on to give them some length, give them some fresh starts in this series, and get them going on the right foot. And again, Tennessee has not announced a starter. Arkansas hasn't either. I'm assuming, I don't have any reason to believe otherwise, that Arkansas is going to keep it fairly simple with, Zach Root going game 1. He threw on Saturday, threw 94 pitches. It's now Saturday again. That's a full week of rest. He didn't necessarily go balls to the wall. Weren't a ton of high stress situations. I expect Zach Root to be the guy. I expect Gage Wood, who threw on Sunday, threw very well, went according to plan. I expect him to throw on Sunday again. And then again, like I said, Monday, you'll just piece it together with whoever you need. Tennessee is a little bit more interesting because Liam Doyle, of course, is their guy, their ace. He did not start game 1 against Arkansas, and the reason he didn't is because he had the week before done a little funny business where there was a rain delay and there was some things, so he came out of the bullpen, and they wanted to be careful with how they used him, so they gave him an extra day of rest. They're in a pretty similar situation here where he throws over 100 pitches on Friday in game 1 of their regional, comes back Monday and throws 35 pitches out of the bullpen to close it out. Again, when you're in a winner-take-all situation, that's the kind of stuff that happens. I do not anticipate Liam Doyle is going to pitch game 1. I think that would probably be an unwise move from Tony Vitello, who, don't want to criticize him too much, but I think that would be a little weird. Now, one thing I will say, Tony Vitello mentioned how their catcher, Cannon Peebles, who's their go-to guy, he's suspended for game 1, of course, because he got ejected in the regional final Monday. He is not starting. He's not going to be able to play in game 1, and their backup catcher has caught Marcus Phillips a lot. So you combine that with the, shorter rest for Liam Doyle, the fact that he was used a lot on Monday, and you combine it with the fact that Marcus Phillips has already started a game 1 of a series against Arkansas and actually did fairly well. You see the numbers there. I think that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense for him to be that first starter. I don't anticipate them throwing off, as the kids say these days, and just kind of piecing it together and kind of saying what I said for game 3. I don't anticipate them doing that in game 1. But we'll see how it goes. Again, he did not announce a starter. But one thing Tony Vitello did say is he's not going to base this decision off the catching situation. So perhaps that maybe opens the door for Liam Doyle. But again, I think if you're a Hog fan and you're going into this, you should be thrilled if Tennessee decides to use Liam Doyle on Saturday. He got some rest in between. Monday to Saturday is not necessarily a quick turnaround, but we're talking about a power pitcher, a guy who lives and dies with a hard fastball in the upper 90s, a hard slider. Like, it is a very power-based operation, meaning the more rested he is, the better he's going to be. That being said, he did throw really well Monday, coming off short rests. I mean, maybe all things go out the window in the postseason, but if it were up to me and I were the head coach of Tennessee, which I am not, I always say that with Dave. If he calls me, if Tony V calls me and needs some advice, I will say, hey, go ahead and throw Marcus Phillips. You feel good about him. He threw the ball pretty well last week. Just go there. So either way, regardless of how the order shakes out for either team, these are the top two starters. And you look at the numbers, obviously a little bit better on the Tennessee side. Marcus Phillips with a 3.71 ERA. Gage Wood with a 5.33 ERA, and Zach Root with a 3.78, and Liam Doyle with a 2.84 ERA with what is a school record 158 strikeouts in 92 innings of work there. Now, Liam Doyle, of course, you see, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the numbers for what these guys did against the opponent they're about to face. Neither Zach Root nor Gage Wood necessarily had a stunning outing in their time against Tennessee. Gage Wood was on a little bit of a pitch count, but neither did Liam Doyle or Marcus Phillips. And so, of course, there's also been a lot of discussion about Liam Doyle and his potential pitch tipping. I know Tennessee fans have been really hammering that home. That seems like a real thing. And by the way, that is a real thing that happens at every level of baseball, or at least every competitive level of baseball. Tennessee feels like they figured it out. They figured out how to not tip pitches with Liam Doyle, which, of course, is a big deal. One thing I would point out is that we talked about Liam Doyle a lot. It's not like he's a dude that throws 5 or 6 pitches and really likes to keep you guessing. It's fastball, slider, occasional cutter. That's pretty much it. And so I don't know if how big of a deal that's going to be in this series, but when you look at the numbers, Arkansas had 11 hits, 8 runs against him. He did strike out 10 of them. That's something that is certainly a huge factor. So if there's something that he feels like he's figured out, I'm inclined to listen to it and agree. But again, you look at the numbers and forget the numbers. We also talked the other day about the draft prospects of these guys. Zach Root being the number 43 overall prospect, MLB.com. Gage Wood being number 50. Marcus Phillips being number 65. And Liam Doyle being number 9. Of course, Liam Doyle maybe got a little separation there. But again, these are 4 of the best arms in the country, the most dynamic arms in the country. Also kind of all different stuff archetypes. But ultimately, you got one righty, one lefty. They're all good. I really don't think either team should feel massively better than the other team about this situation. Tennessee fans would maybe take exception to that and say, well, we got Liam Doyle. He's maybe the best pitcher in the country, and you can give them that. But I also don't think Arkansas's rolling out some bums out there. And with the way that both of those starters for Arkansas threw the other day, I don't necessarily think Hog fans should be feeling super inferior there. But, again, even if you want to give the nod to Tennessee, I think we can agree, not a ton of separation here. You got one righty, one lefty, both pretty good. I want to move on to this next section here. This next section is a little bit, interesting because I'm going to list 4 right-handed pitchers, all of which are kind of different, but they're kind of broken up into groups of 2. But again, I think there's some parallels here. I want to start with Gabe Gackle and A.J. Russell. So A.J. Russell for Tennessee starts his career as a closer as a freshman, did a great job for them, dynamic, mid to high 90s, right-handed arm, and then gets moved to the starting rotation as a sophomore and then tears his UCL, misses the entire season, comes back, and he's worked into that Tennessee bullpen here lately, actually got a start in Game 7 of the regional to finish their weekend on Monday. Again, kind of a similar stuff archetype and a similar career arc to Gabe Gackle, who, of course, started his career as a closer as a freshman, then moves to the starting rotation as a sophomore, and now is kind of in this hybrid long reliever type of role. I think both those guys are pretty similar. You see the numbers there, not a huge sample size for Russell, who, of course, again, is working his way back from injury. But he threw really well in that series against Arkansas. Him and Gackle actually came into the game similar times. I believe A.J. Russell was coming in with a lead. But he did a good job against Arkansas, working out of some damage. And I want to ask you guys, I want to throw this to you guys for just a second. Let's say, hypothetically, you get to a situation where you're in Game 3 and Gabe Gackle has not thrown. And you may think, how the hell would that happen? Well, let's say Arkansas just gets after Marcus Phillips. They get him for 6-7 runs. They see him that second trip through and they feel really good. So Arkansas ends up winning Game 3, let's say 9-3. So that'd be a game where you probably wouldn't want to use Gackle to just waste him. And then let's say Liam Doyle pitches Game 2 for Tennessee and just shoves. He gets his revenge, kind of holds Arkansas down. Tennessee ends up winning, we'll say 6-2. And another game, again, you wouldn't use Gabe Gackle in. And again, it doesn't have to be these exact scores. I just mean the type of game you're in. That would lead to a situation where you're in a winner-take-all Game 3 and Gabe Gackle is completely fresh. Again, if I were Dave Van Horn, it would be hard for me to not be tempted to go ahead and just start arguably my best arm on the team and a guy who started before. Matter of fact, when Arkansas was in this situation last year with Hagen Smith and all these guys, if they had advanced to the super regional round, I believe you would have seen Gabe Gackle make his first career start. Now, based on how it went for him in the starting rotation this year, maybe you'd say that would have gone south and he sucks. Okay, fair. But I just do think that's something to keep an eye on, because I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Arkansas faces that type of situation. And again, when you're in these winner-take-all situations, there's really not like any rules or logic that you need to follow. And so I'm not saying for sure it's going to happen. Obviously, if Arkansas has a lead of 2 or 3 runs in any of these first 2 games, you're probably going to see Gabe Gackle. But I just don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that you see him, at least considered as a starter. And the same kind of goes for A.J. Russell, who, again, came out of the bullpen and started that regional final game. 7 for them, has started games in the past. And I think they're kind of the version of each other for their respective ball clubs. And 2 guys that I think also have a little bit of a parallel, Christian Fouch and Tanner Franklin, both of which are in the similar prospect range. Tanner Franklin has touched 102 miles an hour this year. We know Christian Fouch can run it up into triple digits. Christian Fouch is a little bit better numbers, specifically in that batting average against, that 169 opponents against him, 3.48 ERA, 27 strikeouts, 20 innings. A little bit more volume for Tanner Franklin. He's a guy that they use twice a lot. They used him twice in that Arkansas series. Threw okay against Arkansas for the most part. 276 batting average against for a guy that throws 102. A little bit interesting. ERA over 5. Tanner Franklin has had some good outings for them lately. Not going to be and again, the reason I say they're kind of similar, neither of these guys are guys that you're going to get 3, 4, 5 inning outings out of. You're not going to see these guys get stretched out much. You might see them both twice on the weekend, but it's going to be high leverage, low volume, and both guys will touch 100. Both guys are maybe better prospects than they are college players. I think there's some similarities there. I think Arkansas has a slight advantage there from Christian Fouch, but those are 2 guys that I put together for obvious reasons. And now this next page, we're going to talk about the left-handed pitchers, because ultimately, when you're comparing pitching staffs, it's really a matter of who are your starters, who are your righties, who are your lefties, and let's compare and contrast. And that's pretty much what we're doing here. So you got to look at the right-handed pitchers, and there's some more guys that we're going to touch on here at the end, but here's the left-handed pitchers, the top 2 guys for both teams. You see Parker Coyle, who's been outside of the time he was out with injury, just the model of consistency and stability for this Razorback pitching staff, with really good numbers on the year, 1.33 ERA, 22 strikeouts and 2 walks and 20 innings of work. That's good stuff. Now he's given up 3 earned runs all year, 2 of which came from the bat of Andrew Fisher, who had a 2-run home run against him in that series a few weeks ago. So maybe that's something you can think of. But I think against Tennessee's lineup with some big-time left-handed bats at the top, expect to see Parker Coyle, who threw the ball really well against North Dakota State. And Tennessee has their version of him in a sophomore left-hander, Dylan Loy, who threw twice against Arkansas. He started game 3 of the regional for them and then wound up coming in relief again. He's a guy that they'll use twice on the weekend, similar to how Parker Coyle is used twice on the weekend. And just like Parker Coyle, Dylan Loy is one of those guys that maybe doesn't have the overall stuff and the big, loud 98-mile-an-hour fastball. He's going to be 89 to 91, but he fills up the strike zone. The 168 opponent's batting average is actually kind of nuts. 36 strikeouts, 11 walks for him in 31 2/3 innings this year with an ERA just under 4. Those guys are kind of similar in how they're used, the stuff archetype, and just how, what role they play for their team. And I think Arkansas, and again, this is actually kind of crazy. Tennessee has a guy that has become a massive weapon for them named Brandon Arvidsson, who you see down here below. You look at the ERA at 4.34 and you're like, are you sure that's one of their top guys? 37 innings. You see that strikeout number, 69 strikeouts and 20 walks in 37 innings of work. This dude came out of the bullpen and threw over 100 pitches, went 5 2/3 in a big time game for Tennessee. He certainly emerged down the stretch, has really turned the corner, has become one of their top guys. The same, I believe, is true for Arkansas's Cole Gibler, the true freshman, who's got a 3.60 ERA, 25 innings pitched, which, again, those 2 numbers don't necessarily jump off the page. But then you look at the strikeout rate, 49 strikeouts in 25 innings, only 9 walks, opponents hitting just 219 against him. He also was very good against Tennessee, almost identical lines there for both of those guys in their respective matchups. Cole Gibler goes 3 1/3, 3 hits, 0 runs, 3 strikeouts against Tennessee. Arvidsson goes 3 innings, scoreless, 0 hits, 4 strikeouts in 2 games against Arkansas. And Arvidsson has kind of become that, I don't want to say unlikely hero. He's got good stuff. I mean, it's low to mid 90s fastball, big old slider, similar to the Cole Gibbler. It's very similar stuff, very similar roles. Both of these guys have kind of emerged as huge weapons for their teams. The only difference is Cole Gibbler did not pick up a ball last weekend, or didn't get into the game, I should say. He did actually stir in the bullpen for a little bit. Whereas Arvidsson closed out one game and then came in through 5 2/3 in relief, threw over 100 pitches, which is the kind of stuff you see this time of year. Both of these guys fit the description of like riding the hot hand. Cole Gibbler is certainly the hot hand for this Razorback bullpen. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do against Tennessee. I felt like his outing against Tennessee is like when he really grew up, Cole Gibbler, that is. And so excited to see both of those left-handed pitchers who have similar stuff, see how they throw. But again, there's just more parallels with these two pitching staffs than I maybe realized. And now here are a few other arms we can look at. I guess, let's see. Yeah, there's the lefties there. Here are a few more arms we can look at here. You've got Will McIntyre, of course, who threw extremely well against Tennessee just a few weeks ago. Dylan Carter, who also threw against Tennessee, has been a really solid, consistent force for Arkansas. Good ERAs on both of those guys. Aiden Jimenez, who might be your Game 3 starter, of course, had to list him. He's thrown against Tennessee. Did not necessarily go well for him. Ben Bybee has been an arm that Arkansas quite hasn't figured out what to do with. But you get on down the line. These are kind of some of the guys I just felt inclined to mention. Landon Beidelshe's had a pretty solid outing against Tennessee a few weeks ago. Did give up a big 2-run home run, but he's thrown over 56 innings on the year for Arkansas, 61 strikeouts, 19 walks. And then Tennessee has kind of their versions of those guys. Nate Snead is kind of your veteran, been there before. Really, he's the closer for this Tennessee team, although it has not gone well for him lately. He was the one losing pitcher for the Volunteers in their Knoxville Regional. Also did not pitch very well against Arkansas. He came into the game with a 4-run lead. It quickly dwindled to a 2-run lead. Arkansas got 6 hits in 2 innings against Nate Snead, who throws over 100. I say over 100. He can throw 100. Is really going to live in that 96 to 98 range. Was a huge piece for them last year. Threw over 70 innings out of the bullpen. Has thrown 49 this year. Certainly a guy worth mentioning, no doubt about that. They're going to lean on him in a big situation. And they've got a freshman right-hander, Braden Krenzel, who's got some pretty good stuff. Actually was the winning pitcher in their regional final. Has sort of kind of earned his way into high leverage work, but he is a freshman. I don't necessarily think they're going to bring him in to close an 8-7 game in the 9th inning or anything. He's got pretty good stuff. Austin Breedlove made a couple outings against Arkansas, one that went well, one that did not go well. I believe he only got 1 out in their regional. I mentioned the lefty Andrew Banky. I believe that's how you're saying that name. He came in and finished out their game against Miami of Ohio. Doesn't have a ton of innings on the year, but is a guy you could see as a left-on-left specialist. Another guy I probably should have mentioned for Tennessee is Tegan Coons, who started Game 3 for Arkansas. Freshman who's got some pretty good stuff. I think he's going to be a good prospect in the next couple of years. He fits we've seen this story play out with freshman arms. Stop me if you've heard this before. He started the year pretty well, earned himself into a pretty big role, and then once you got to about April, May, started to kind of run out of gas, started facing some better competition, got roughed up a little bit, and is now kind of fallen out of favor with the staff. He did not throw it all last week in their regional. We've seen that kind of story play out with Gage Wood, Brady Tigert, and so many other freshman arms over the years. So again, you look at some of these teams, there's a lot of similar stories, a lot of guys that fit the same kind of archetype. But I do think if you're looking at this from an Arkansas standpoint, one, I think if this episode's taught you anything, I think it should show you that it's really not that big of a gap between like the frontline arms. Like Liam Doyle is like, seriously, I make fun of him a lot, but like he might be the best, most dynamic arm in the country, at least that Arkansas could face here down the stretch. And so you think, oh, that's a big advantage for Tennessee. But when you look at the way Zach Root threw last week and the way Gage Wood's been throwing here lately, and their prospect status, really not that much of a gap. And I think both of those guys for Arkansas are a little bit more reliable than Marcus Phillips is for Tennessee. And so I don't think Tennessee has a massive edge in starting pitching, but I also don't think Arkansas maybe has the depth advantage that to such a drastic degree. Tennessee doesn't really trust some of those arms that I listed out have been super up and down for Tennessee. They maybe don't trust them 1,000%. But most teams that you're facing in that situation, like for instance, like a Creighton, when they got to the situation where they're bringing guys out and they're scraping the bottom of the barrel, they're scraping the bottom of the barrel with guys that throw 88. Tennessee, when they're scraping the bottom of the barrel, it's with either a freshman with electric stuff or an older guy that's been good for them in the past that's maybe not as good now, like Nate Snead fits that criteria. It's not necessarily the same. And so as is honestly with everything with this series, we could break down the offensive numbers, not a ton of separation. We could break down the program's success over the last 5 years, not a ton of separation. We looked at the pitching staff, every single level of it. There's not a ton of separation. And so I would love to come here and be like, look, Arkansas, if this happens, Arkansas is in great shape. If this happens, whatever. Listen, these are two really good teams with a ton of really good arms. I think Arkansas, again, has a little bit more consistency and some depth there. Like I'll pull up that list again. Like some of these guys, like Will McIntyre, that's someone we really trust and we should trust. Dylan Carter's been really good for Arkansas. Hell, even Aiden Jimenez, who hasn't been great here lately. I mean, he's been in some big moments for Arkansas. He's been at times looked like Arkansas's best arm. Landon Beidelshe's like super overqualified for the role that he's in now, which is like barely getting any high leverage work. You compare that to, this freshman lefty down there that has 12 innings on the year, a little bit different. You're looking at a Beidelshe's a guy that has started games on the weekend compared to a freshman with 12 innings. Even like Aiden Jimenez, Dylan Carter, and those guys, you compare them to Breedlove, a JUCO transfer, who's solid. But I wouldn't say Tennessee's thrilled with his work. And then a freshman in Krenzel, who's got some good stuff. I think you trust, like Arkansas trusts that group up top a little bit more than Tennessee trusts that group. And I mean, again, you just go on through it. The lefties, pretty similar, honestly. The righties, pretty similar, honestly. The starters, pretty similar. Like, these are different guys, and who knows how they're all going to throw this weekend. All of it goes out the window once you start playing the games. But it is kind of fascinating when you compare these two pitching staffs. There's way more in common than I maybe realized initially. And so it's interesting to see how Tennessee's going to deploy their guys. And I think the big question of the weekend for me is Tennessee played in so many high leverage situations, so many high leverage innings this past weekend where Tony Vitello really had to sit there and think, who do I want in this situation? It's 6-6 against Wake Forest. Who do I want in? He had to make those decisions. Dave Van Horn really didn't. And so I think for Tennessee preparing for this series, it's maybe a little bit harder because it's like, hey, you don't know who they're going to go to in certain situations. They got to see a lot of these arms a few weeks ago. But what's it going to look like when you see them again? Some of these guys haven't thrown in 3 weeks. I mean, Will McIntyre has not thrown since Arkansas faced Tennessee. Cole Gibbler followed up his really good outing against Tennessee with a really good outing in Hoover, but then he didn't throw last week. Will he be that sharp again? Like, what's it going to look like? Man, I just can't wait. And so I can't wait to start breaking it down again. That'll start on Saturday. Tomorrow, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I've never had to go this far in terms of previewing the content, but we'll have something for sure. I'll probably give out an official prediction at some point tomorrow. I'm going back and forth. I don't want to say anything too crazy, but I appreciate you guys hanging out and kicking it on today's episode of the Baumbastic Podcast. We will be back tomorrow, and woo damn pig. That's all I have to say. And we will see you tomorrow. Appreciate you guys for always kicking it. Pull up at Alumni Hall tomorrow, by the way. We're going to be, John Curtis and I are going to be doing our live Inside Arkansas live show from Alumni Hall from 12 to 1:30 over there at 3417 North College Avenue. I didn't even have to look that up. I know that address like the back of my hands. I appreciate those guys. Looking forward to seeing them. It's been a great, brilliant edition of the Baumbastic Podcast. I will see you cats later.